Welcome, everyone, to a very special. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, Bri, everything is very special with you. Tomato, tomato. But as prone as I am to hyperbole, this show really, forget everything I've said before about a special show. This one's really special. Because when you meet my friend Drew and you learn what his passion is, you're going to be like, Bri, put the camera on, Drew. What are you even doing? Wait. Well, now we're tuning in for Drew. But here's the thing. You've heard me all these years, coming up now, what, like 500 episodes of All Natural Being, and I've always been about the philosophically pristine. When he talks, he puts the P in pristine. Drew, welcome, hello, and please save me. Right, just tell me, because they're going to go, Brian, yeah, you're clear. Look, Brian, we've known you've been insane for a long time, but now you've dragged poor Drew into it. Drew, why don't you tell them why I'm so fired up to know you and why I enjoy speaking with you and learning about the passion the wisdom that just oozes out of you.
First off, thanks for having me, Brian. It's such a pleasure. I'm coming to you from Anchorage, Alaska right now, where we're socially isolated. It's springtime just broke right here as well, where the snow is gone in the yard. I got to go clean up all the dog stuff here later today. So like we're a little bit behind everybody else. But when I hear you talk about the pristine, I say that's my jam. Right. I'm a small business owner here in Alaska, and what I do is I take people out to wilderness areas to photograph and experience brown bears.
Talk to me about the bears, and because here's the times that I've been to Alaska, and they're not nearly as, obviously you live there, you're there a lot more than I am, but the times I've been there, I've always been fascinated by the sheer beauty of both the animals and the terrain. Right? And then when you go with someone, which is why I was so looking forward to talking to you, a lot of people go, oh, there's a bear. They talk to you. You like know all about them. You can, so that's why I'm excited to learn from you. When you say you're a guide and you take, when I've seen the picture, the pre-shaven, if you will, right? The pre-shaven you, I've seen that picture and you see these grizzly bears and they're just massive, but they're so stoic in a way. Until they have to hunt, until they have to do something, until they have to defend their young, whatever, till they're, arm wrestling with each other. They're so stoic that to me, it's always been the epitome of wisdom and stature, right? Of physical brawn and the ability to run the show, but they're so laid back. It's like, takes a lot to egg me on. So can you tell me a little bit about both of the sides that you've seen, both the physical side, that strength, and then also the philosophical, just kind of digging, being out there in the wild?
When you're in the bear business, you get a lot of different takes on it because everybody has different perceptions of bears from what they've read, what they've seen on TV, what they've seen in movies. And really what most people know about bears has more to do with the nature of stories than the nature of bears. What we've got out here in Alaska, and I deal with an area on the Alaska Peninsula. So it is a remote area. You drive down to the sleepy little fishing town of Homer, Alaska. You get in a float plane. You fly out for an hour across Cook Inlet. You land, and suddenly you've gone from an urban environment, a town, a city, and you're in the middle of nowhere. And you've got natural salmon runs. You've got mountains. You've got glaciers. And the thing that really ties it all together is these bears. And as you get on the ground and you're walking around, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that you can be walking around and just turn your head left and right and you can count 20, 30, 40, 50. The most brown bears I've seen at one time is 78 in a quarter-mile stretch of river. You're just sitting there with no fences. These bears in this situation they're all about business, and they recognize that you are not their business. And so as we go out there and we're doing these things, our job is to not blend in. They know we're there. We're full disclosure. It's not like we're hiding from them.
Doesn't sound like you would have much of a shelf life if you were busy practicing having Tourette's syndrome and you show up on a bear and go, ah! Right? So I would imagine you want to let them know you're in the neighborhood, right? You're in the P.O. box.
You not only want to let them know, but you want to behave in a way that they find predictable. So these bears, you're not the first person these bears have seen. Like we go out every day and we hang out with these bears, and they through time have realized that a small group of well-behaved humans is nothing that they even need to pay attention to. So they'll walk right by you.
You tell me, Drew, there's a small group of well-behaved humans?
When they go
Where
out
do
with
you
me, they're well
find
behaved.
them? Talk about natural. Talk about pristine. Come on. Where have you ever found a small group, right, of well-behaved humans?
Well,
That's
I
good.
have found that if you put them right in front of a grizzly bear,
Yeah,
they will
yeah.
do whatever you tell them.
I'm sitting up straight now just hearing you say it. Most of the people watch this will go, wait a minute, I know a Yogi Bear, right? Hey, boo boo, right? But so I can imagine that. But now, can I just ask a question because it came to mind? A lot of people will talk about bears. So we have a little bit of time here, Drew, if you would you tell me or dispel the myth or just educate us? They say, oh, if you see a bear, you should play like you're asleep. If you see a bear, you should make yourself look like Drew, right? It helps with the beard, but you should make yourself look real big so that they're scared of you. What's the scoop, right? And I know it's different for different bears and everything else, but as an expert, can you give us chuckleheads? Can you give us regular folks? What's the scoop if you see a bear in the wild and you're not in that group of well-behaved humans?
So I just have to start off with the disclaimer in this description that what we do in Alaska, do not try this at home.
Or
Do
a
not
zoo.
try this on
Or a
or
zoo. Like, don't
or
fly over the fence, down through the moat, right, and want to have your dances with wolves moment.
that would
These
be on top of
chuckleheads.
your poor life
Yeah.
decision list.
Right.
Yeah. So the reason we can do what we do is because it's been going on so long. It's a
Okay.
process called habituation where these bears are just they're used to people. They're still wild, and if you do stuff wrong, it could go
South.
very, very wrong. But it's just a matter of doing it right and going with somebody who knows. But what we have on the Alaska Peninsula is we've got such a high density of bears. These bears are very used to interacting with each other. So, and if you're used to interacting with another grizzly bear, or I should say grizzly bears and brown bears are the same thing. I'm going to use them interchangeably.
Thank you.
But if you're a grizzly bear and you're used to interacting with another grizzly bear, it's not a big stretch for you to start interacting with humans because we're humans. We're not as intimidating or threatening as a bear. So a lot of times it gets to the point where even these bears are so cognizant of human behavior and its predictability that they will seek out proximity because we're more predictable to them than other bears. It's kind of, it takes some twist of the brain to really wrap your head around it. But when you're out in this wilderness situation and it's fully immersive, like you've got salmon running, you've got it's the real deal package here, and you've got a mama grizzly bear that's so comfortable that she will leave her cubs at your feet while she goes to fish because she knows that you are more predictable and you are not going to hurt her cubs, but another bear might. And we are basically acting as, it's an extreme case, like but it does happen. You are.
You're like a surrogate.
You now have
a nanny.
You have a trust relationship with that animal. It's not necessarily, we're not sending Christmas cards.
Right.
But in that moment in time, there is a trust that has come to be. And it's a very powerful experience. And I don't think I've ever taken anybody out who hasn't been at the very least impressed, if not transformed by this experience.
Sure. So the mom doesn't bring back like salmon for you, right? Like you've watched the cubs for a half hour. She comes back. She goes, oh, I thought you could use some sushi. So you've never had like a mom bring back some salmon for you since you've been busy watching the little ones, but it still is symbiotic, right? They still kind of get along.
It is. It's so far out of the pale. Now I do, just so that everybody's safe in their bear viewing activities, this is not something that you want to do at, say, Yellowstone Park. Those bears are very different. Sure. You know, they're not as used to dealing with other bears or other creatures at such tight proximity. So they don't have the background. They don't have the culture of interacting constructively with other animals, be it humans, be it other bears, things like that. In Yellowstone or Glacier, it takes a lot more habitat to make a bear. Like they need to be able to defend a stretch of, they need to be able to chase off a wolf pack or know, another bear. Whereas here in Alaska, on the Alaska Peninsula, their lunch swims right to them. So it changes their mindset, it changes their attitude. And so as long as you're with somebody who knows what they're doing and has experience with these bears and how to communicate, because then every interaction you have, a lot of people want a bear experience to be black and white. A bear does this, you do this, boom, we get out safely, everybody. But what you're actually having is a dialogue. You're having a conversation with these bears, and they only speak bear, frankly. Their English is a little rusty. So they're interacting.
They are close to Russia. They are right up there, so you could see where their English right?
Well, I can
Never
see it
mind.
from, I think it's
Right?
right over
No,
there,
no,
right?
Drew. Why? 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 They said don't do any Sarah Palin jokes. No matter what you do, Brian, no Sarah Palin jokes. Now, admittedly, I teed you up. How could you not say I could see Russia right there? But
It was a
okay,
softball. It was a
okay.
softball. I had to. I had
So
to.
I know. I'm sorry about that, brother. That's my fault. Totally my fault. Let's still hope that makes it in. So even though they all speak bear, is it fair to assume then, Drew, that they may speak bear, but they have different temperaments? So they're a lot like humans. Do you have some bears that are just not nice bears, and you have other bears that are a little nicer, a little easier to get along with? Do you find, just like it with human beings, there's guys you'd go have a beer with, and there's guys you wouldn't go have a beer with?
Definitely, definitely. Okay. And you see that when you see a congregation of bears, like I mentioned how many, you see 60, 70 bears at a time,
78.
you're guaranteed to have different personalities in there. They're as distinct as all of us. And so one of the tricks is knowing which ones to avoid. But
Right.
That's the thing, is they're excellent communicators. They're communicating through body language, they're communicating through actions, and they will tell you exactly what's on their mind.
What kind of mood they're in?
Exactly.
What kind of mood?
You can pick it up just by they're very expressive.
Okay.
And if you can pick up what they're laying down, you can coexist with bears.
And so, like, some of them, if they get up, they haven't had their morning cup of coffee, they're a little grouchy, like some of the rest of us. Have you found that some of the temperament changes throughout the day? Like, with one particular bear, and you've been filming them all day long, they're one way in the morning, and then they get a little more irritable as the day wears on? Or is the temperament pretty much standard throughout the time that you're there witnessing them?
Well,
Sorry to ask you that.
No. It definitely changes. They have their moods. You think of a bear that's rolling out for the first time in the morning. They haven't had their morning salmon. For them, it's salmon. And then you watch that same bear after he's got 27 sockeye salmon in his gut, and he is a completely different bear.
Right. Very cool. So a lot like humans, other than the hair and the claws and the size, a lot like humans. So there would be a reason for humanity to feel a bond with these bears, because they're terribly either like us or we're terribly like them. We're not really all that much separated in terms of temperament.
Well, and they harken back to our primal nature. We are humans, but we are animals.
Right.
on our most basic level, and there is a connection there that when you go out and you see these things, it to a lot of people who are listening today, they're going to say, "Oh, this guy's nuts."
Or they're talking about you, or talking about me?
They might just, those guys.
Oh, they're talking about me.
They're talking about both of us. They could.
I thought you were going to say the viewers to go, well, we know Brian's nuts.
Well, what I was getting at is what I'm doing here. I'm not the only one that does this. Like here in South Central Alaska, I'm based out of the town of Homer. You can't throw a rock in Homer without hitting another bear viewing guide. There was an economic impact study done a couple years ago where the bear viewing industry, people who come to Alaska to go do these things I'm talking about, generates about $40 million a year for the local economy. It generates about 500 jobs. Like this is, it's a legitimate industry, and it's an important part of our diversified tourist economy.
Sure. Now, you're not on lockdown, right, or anything. So, like, your governor hasn't said you can't. Could people still travel to you? Could people watch this and watch the movie trailer we're going to be talking about? Watch all this, and then could they come to you, Drew, if they could get an airplane to get there, right? What have you experienced the people of Alaska or the authorities in Alaska have done in response to the coronavirus?
Well, right now, we are, of course, unique in a lot of different ways here in Alaska, and we are on a lockdown. There is a ban on intrastate travel. There's a ban on interstate travel, so you can't quite come here yet. You'd have to quarantine, and there are different protocols in place because we've got a lot of remote corners of this state. We've got a lot of people who are still living traditional lifestyles, subsistence lifestyles out in villages. And one of our worst nightmares would be that this virus made it into some remote village where they have 2 ventilators, where they don't even have a doctor.
And no herd immunity. No herd immunity. No way to. And could I ask you this, Drew? And the only reason I ask this is that one tiger, I believe it was a Bengal tiger in New York, and 2 cats came down with coronavirus. One could theorize that another reason to keep all the chuckleheads out of Alaska right now is, you and I have to give each other 6 feet. MIT says 28 feet. Oh, tomato, tomato. But you don't want a bear coming down with it either. If it really is being transmitted between tigers and house cats and humans, you don't want the poor bear population to get them either. If there's 78 of them within a quarter-mile stretch, you don't want to run that risk. Or is that totally out of bounds?
As a small business owner who relies on bear populations, no, I definitely don't want these bears to get sick. Right. I need them in their prime.
Good. So listen, you mentioned prime. So here's what I want to talk about, because people go, "Oh, Brian, we love having a bear expert on." But my question to you when we first met was, what price can you put on pristine? So people are going to go, I love Drew. As soon as they let the siege or the quarantine or the lockdown, whatever it's called, I'm going to book to go see him. And as you say, contribute to the economy. 500 people. That's a bunch of people feeding their families. That's a bunch of people, watching out for their kids. So it's instrumental to a local economy when you have that many people enjoying your type of lifestyle. But outside of that, when you and I first talked, we talked about the price you put on pristine. Could you go into a little bit about, we understand your passion, but now why do you have to rise in defense of a quarter-mile stretch that has 78 bears? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the reason that you can have 78 bears in one spot like that is because we have these vast tracts of intact wilderness. Okay. Alaska is the only place left in the United States where you still have a resource like wilderness. And with 8 billion people in the world, every day, places like that get more valuable. And while we are making money through the fishing industry, through different sustainable practices, the bear viewing industry, we are a small footprint. We are small businesses. We're trying to make our living by leaving things how they are. And you can trace this tradition back tens of thousands of years. You look at the subsistence fisheries and things like that. If you just leave it alone, it will produce, it will provide. Well, one of the other...
True, if I could interrupt, that's why they call them hunter and gatherers. They weren't hunters and ground and pound, right? They weren't hunters and go, screw that, we're staying right here. They moved. And when they moved, things had the ability to grow back up until they circled back around again. So I would imagine that over, what's the word I'm looking for? Overuse. I can't think of the word that I want, but to continually tap a particular portion of the environment means that it won't last for very long. So of course there's a benefit of having untamed wilderness and acres and miles and square miles of it, because it allows those things to grow back after they've been put under stress. Would that be a fair assessment?
That's how, and that's how the system has worked forever.
Forever. Right.
And then one of the things that comes with these large tracts of wilderness is you also have other natural resources that could be exploited for short-term gain. And so what we have to do is you have to weigh benefits versus what are your pros and cons. So what we've got right now is we've got a proposal to put the world's largest copper mine at the headwaters of the Bristol Bay sockeye salmon fishery. So Bristol Bay sockeye salmon fishery generates about $1.5 billion a year, 14,000 jobs, and it's something that will go on forever as long as you just kind of let it do its thing, right?
Let it be. Sure, let it be.
And so right now we've got these two forces that are banging heads where, some people want to go in and mine this. And the crux of it is that copper mines and salmon fisheries don't coexist.
Get out of here. You don't order your salmon with a side of copper?
Shocker.
Oh, come on. You don't have a salmon dish with a shot glass, maybe some copper fluid on the rocks?
Copper on the side.
Copper on the side with some kind. What's supposed with copper through? Some kind of chaser.
You just can't do it. You just can't do it. Okay. You need these intact ecosystems to do this. And my job, my business in the bear viewing world relies on salmon. I'm not taking people to see salmon, but they do.
Sure.
Like you can't have these bears
Right.
without this salmon. And so while we're all concerned about, where's our tourist season going to go? Are we going to be able to fish this summer? How do we pay our mortgages? How do we make our boat payments?
Right. Right.
Where's this business going to come from? There's this project that's rolling along through the federal permitting process that we can't adequately comment on because we're having to reprioritize about things that deal with just living. And frankly, like it's going up to some very high governmental levels that this is going on under the radar right now. You might not even heard about it because you can't get through the COVID-19 headline wall to realize that there are forces that are working against us to undermine places like this.
And like the grizzly bears, you mentioned this earlier, like the grizzly bears, I would imagine people would say, well, true, it's a copper mine. I'm from West Virginia, and I can tell you what mining did in West Virginia. Strip mines and the tops of mountains gone and all the runoff, toxic runoff. And it's been my experience, maybe you can't say, but I can, wherever a mining company says, oh, don't worry, we'll take care of the waste. Oh, that worked really well in Chernobyl. I don't know why we never believed you guys. You were able to handle that over there, right? Or Fukushima or anywhere else. So talk to us a little bit, because it's not just a copper mine. And right, the bears dig salmon. I imagine probably people listening dig salmon, right? And they don't want their salmon toxified. They don't want, right? They like their salmon to come with a little bit of lemon and a sprig of this or that, but not glowing. We don't want it toxic to where it emits a blue strange light when we look down at the plate. So there's all kinds of reasons bears and humans should go, who in their right mind would put a mine, copper or any other, that could run the risk of, I'm guessing, polluting the water, and I'm guessing then in order to get the copper from the mine to wherever it needs to get, wouldn't that also interrupt this wide expanse of natural thoroughfare for the bears and everything else in the food chain that falls below the bears, right? We learned that in Yellowstone. Wouldn't that interfere with both the water content, the drinkability of the water, the salmon, and also the bear's ability to move around without heavy-duty machinery and roads and logging trucks and all the rest of this? Or am I just, as I'm prone to do, brother, I warned you in the beginning, am I prone to hyperbole? Maybe a copper mine isn't all that bad. What say you?
You've nailed it right there. I don't.
Wow. Well, there you go. You heard it from the expert. Someone thinks I'm right. Okay. I'm sorry. So Drew, so there's a lot that goes into this, all for copper.
Yeah, it gets portrayed. If you were to read their press releases and things like that, they say, oh, it's just a copper mine. It's going to be a hole about the size of a big airport. Well, and get this, on top of this, digging the hole, the actual act of digging that hole produces sulfuric acid. So not only are you digging this big hole, but then you've got this big hole full of sulfuric acid, which frankly is not good for anything. And it has to be maintained in perpetuity. You can't just leave a vat of sulfuric acid sitting out in the wilderness forever and ever at the headwaters of these. This is a super fun site waiting to happen. So while there might be some short-term gain and people are going to line their pockets and send it off to the mother company in Canada,
whoa. You mean, wait a minute, we're talking about property in Canada? I thought United States owned Alaska.
No, this is a Canadian company that's wanting to put this mine in.
So our own government is allowing a foreign country. I don't even think I can go to the north side of the Niagara Falls. I don't even think Canadians are letting me in to cross the border. But a Canadian company, Canadian, like another country, is going to come into the United States. What the hell do they care if they leave vats of sulfuric acid and toxic water and a few Yogi Bears are put out and none of us can eat any salmon?
Well, and it's this Canadian mining company, and they've got this track record of, the mining companies have a long track record of putting in a hole and then dissolving or going away or poof, and then sticking the U.S. taxpayer with the bill. This is nothing new. This is business as usual for them. And so here we'd be looking at maintaining this vat of sulfuric acid out in the wilderness for ever and ever and ever and ever. We'd be looking at to get the, so this is in a remote area. They'd be looking at putting an ice breaking ferry that would go across the biggest lake in Alaska that supports all these salmon. It would be ice breaking. It would go year round. What if there's an industrial spill out in the middle of nowhere?
And then come on, Drew, you're overreacting. They can, what's the distance between their new vat of sulfuric acid and they want to get their coppet out? How many miles is it all total that we're talking about, the journey?
The whole footprint, though they're mine, they say, oh, it's just a little airport size.
The DAA and LAX combined. Yeah. I got that.
It's part. Actually a 200-mile gash across the habitat.
And their position is nothing could go. I can't drive 200 miles from Columbus to somewhere in Pennsylvania without having an accident, right? Flat tire, anything else. So they're going to leave the vat of sulfuric acid, drive, fly, ice break our way through 200 miles. And their position is we can guarantee to you there won't be any spillage, there won't be any accidents, won't be any jackknife tractor trailers. Look, we learned a lot when the Titanic sank. There's no way one of these icebreakers is going down. So you're telling me over 200 miles they have to travel, and they're saying, oh, don't worry. Look at this hand over here. Don't worry what this one's doing. Over 200 miles, they can guarantee nothing will be a detriment. Forget the fact that I'm imagining some of this infrastructure that has to be built to cover the 200 miles is going to interrupt not only the bears, but migrations of all kinds of animals there. Not only that, but they're saying they can guarantee 200 miles, not so much as like if I had an eyedropper, not so much as an eyedropper of bad stuff. That's their position.
They're going to invent the technology that they can do it safely. Well, it's not even technology that currently exists. It's something they're going to think up once we give them this permit.
So we haven't even tried this technology yet.
It's practice. We're just going to practice with people's livelihoods here.
It's only 200 miles. What the hell could go wrong? It's 200 miles. That's not a lot. What's 5,280 times 200? That's not a lot of feet. And with the technology, we don't even know. Right.
Well, and we've lived through this before. I mean, we as Alaskans, if you think back to Good Friday, 1989, and the Exxon Valdez oil spill.
Yes.
Like this, yes. We've been through this before. We are 75% of Alaskans are opposed to this project. And like we've lived through the Exxon Valdez. We know what's at stake. We have fisheries that haven't bounced back from that. There are still places on the Katmai coast that's 1,100 miles from Valdez where you can go find oil that's left over from 1989.
Well, you might be able to sell it because it's like less than. I mean, I think they pay you now to take a barrel, right? I don't know where the market ended up today. It's where I store
my oil futures. I'm going to go harvest it off the beach.
Yeah, I'm going to go harvest it off the beach, just like the seashells. What are you doing? You taking the kids down with buckets of seashells? No, we're getting little quarter-sized chunks of oil left over from the Exxon Valdez, which they guaranteed us would never leak, would never sink. Drew, come on, you're living a fairy tale if you think what could go wrong. The Titanic, what could go wrong? They're icebergs. We got a ship of metal. What could an iceberg do to us?
Let me just talk you through their plan. I'm doing air quotes here for folks that are just listening.
Yeah. Okay.
So they are going to mine this ore.
My listeners, of course, they're just listening, right? They've learned. It's just nothing to watch with Brian. Just listen.
They're going to mine this ore and create this huge vat of sulfuric acid, and then they're going to put it on a road and drive it down to the shores of Lake Iliamna, which is the biggest lake in Alaska. If it weren't in Alaska, it would be a Great Lake. I mean, this thing is huge.
Huge. Okay.
They'll put it on an ice-breaking ferry, and they will break the ice all the way across Lake Iliamna. They will then put it on trucks, and they will drive it through a road that they're going to put in through the best bear habitat in the world. Bears and roads don't mix well. Where at the other end, so now they've crossed a mountain range, and now they're on the shores of Cook Inlet. And the spot they have chosen to put a deep water port and a power plant, which would be big enough to power a city of 300,000 people.
As one would.
So from this industrial port, they're going to load it on barges. And then they are going to take it out into the Gulf of Alaska, where they are going to transfer it from these barges to a different ship. Using this new technology that they haven't invented yet, and then take it somewhere else. Nothing could go
wrong there.
They're going to handle this toxic ore 5 times in a wilderness area. And it should be mentioned that the weather in the place where their shipping port is. Have you ever seen The Deadliest Catch?
Yes,
You know,
I
the
have.
big waves, things like that.
Unger, yeah, we're acquaintances. We happen to know each other. Yeah, he's a great guy.
That's the
Who
kind of
wrote the
weather
book?
we're
Right.
talking about. That's the
Good
kind of
Lord.
weather we're talking about. Is they're in the, I mean, you go on your weather forecaster out there and
Sure.
you'll see winds of 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour, huge
Yeah.
20-foot waves, and you're going to be transferring this toxic ore from ship to ship, from barge to ship.
Now, let me ask you, are they trying to sell you all on this idea because they're going to hire local people to, because they're not going to let their own kids drive this truck? Their own kids, the CEO of this company, their kids aren't going to be, I've always wanted to be a captain, right? They're not going to let their kids anywhere near it. It's kind of like the guys at Apple and Google won't let their own kids play with iPads, right? So they're not going to let their kids, but as a part of the way they plan on doing the bait and switch is they're going to say, oh, well, we're going to bring a lot of jobs to your local economy. Is that part of the Kabuki theater?
It is. And, you know, jobs is, particularly now, jobs is a key word. People hear jobs, they sit up and listen.
Sure.
But
I set up.
you think about it this way. Yes, there will be jobs, and there could be several hundred jobs involved with the construction and the operation of this mine. But what's the price of those jobs? Am I gonna get this 800 jobs for 20 years? Or am I going to say, I want these 14,000 jobs that Bristol Bay already supports that will go on forever? Like what? So yes, we need more jobs, but what are we willing to give up? Are we willing to shoot ourselves in the foot and lose 14,000 jobs in order to get 800 jobs that only last 20 years? It just doesn't pencil out.
And that's why it doesn't pencil out. It doesn't magic marker out. It doesn't ink. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. And that's what I ask. What's the price you put on pristine? Because you and I, brother, our days are numbered, right? You and I are at a funeral procession. We're just trying to figure out how to RSVP to the final day, right? Our days are numbered. But for our kids, our grandkids, the people that will want to experience the natural beauty, there's just not one place we can leave alone. There's just not one place. Oh, don't worry, Brian. What's the chance anyone will eat a bat in Wuhan? Oh, there's no chance. Well, right, people in Wuhan, they have never even seen Ozzy Osbourne. They wouldn't think of biting a head off a bat. So there's not one place that we can leave uninfected by human beings. It's like, it's the weirdest thing that you said. I believe you said this was the largest. It's like, of course it is. Irish luck, don't believe the hype. Of course, one of the prettiest places on the planet would have the largest copper mine underneath it. You got to shake your head and go, St. Patrick's Day, let it go. I couldn't care less.
Well, and let me put another twist on this. There's a lot of this. The shenanigans that are going on under our noses right now while we're distracted are just some next level stuff.
I like the way you tried in shenanigans with my whole joke about St. Patrick's Day. That was really fun. It was an Irish term. Very good. That was good, right? Again, I'm teeing it up for you. Right? So you do a Sarah Palin joke right into offend all the Irish people watching. Very good.
Well, my great Granny Murphy would be so proud.
So is mine, great Granny Murphy. Yeah. Oh, Brody, where are you going to get there? Right? So it's like, I'm all Mick. What are you going to do?
So all this is going on. Like this whole thing where we're having to jump through hoops in the middle of a pandemic to save our wilderness from this foreign mining company is all going on right now because the CEO of that company he stands to make a $12 million bonus. If this permit that they're talking about right now goes through, and they've said the whole time that they want transparency, they want a good system, we want to hear from stakeholders and people who would be impacted by this mine, and yet these stakeholders, these people who would be impacted by this mine in very profound ways, they're not be able to participate right now. So the process is being forced through by this guy that stands to make $12 million while the rest of us are worrying about our livelihoods.
This is China level kind of stuff. And 12 million, I'm guessing he theorizes, 12 million is worth what it would mean if this mine were complete and it were able to go through and it would do everything and the jobs it would provide for the short term. He doesn't care about what the long term. Or either that or he's drinking his own Kool-Aid and he's buying into a technology that I would remind you is a lot like my kids asked me the other day. They go, Dad, well, how does the tooth fairy get in the house? Oh, well, that's technology that we just can't talk about. So this is like tooth fairy technology. This is technology that hasn't even been, oh, yeah, we're going to meditate it. It's going to hover like Stonehenge. It's going to hover over the water. Then we'll drop it into a barge with bigger waves than a California ski event, a surfing event, right? So the technology doesn't even exist yet. So how can anyone, what am I missing, Drew? How can anyone of a sound mind think this is a good idea?
It worked on Star Trek.
So give me an idea. Your politicians can't be for this. Are you telling me that all the local politicians are being ignored, and this is kind of being, you called it shenanigans, and I know you probably can't say because you got to be careful, but it's like being ramrodded, it's being railroad, it's like all the 5G towers are going up, coronavirus. Like, what is it? Who's trying to push this through with damn near everyone against it?
It's coming from the top down. It really is. Like this is a project that had been defeated before.
Okay.
The Environmental Protection Agency has previously ruled that this mine and this fishery cannot coexist. And so we'll call it 3.5 years ago, there was a meeting between the Pebble Limited Partnership and Scott Pruitt, who is then the director of the EPA, who has been removed for various corrupt reasons.
Oh, come on. He bought himself a $10,000 desk. Get off his back. I don't have to sit here and listen to you.
He deserved that desk. He deserved that desk.
The people that pay Tiffany window glass doors into their office. Come on. I got to draw the line somewhere. All right. So let me 3.5 years. I'll do the math, right? See what I can do. But I've got to tell you, Don Jr., he's a hunter. He loves fish. He seems like a really good guy. I say we reach out to Don Jr. and go, they may not even know this is going on, right? They've got so many other things going on. They may not even know. So I say we reach out to folks that are into the wilderness, that are into going to the environment and say, just so you know, this is what's going to go down if we don't sit up and pay attention. What say you?
I guarantee Don Jr. knows about this.
It does.
Don Jr. has been out there fishing, and I know the people who guided him, and that is not a woman who would not let that opportunity slip to tell him about what's going on.
Okay.
Don Jr. has been there and has seen it, and he has fished it, and he has appreciated that wilderness. And still we're having to bash our head into this wall of government red tape to just protect what's ours and our livelihoods.
I say we start a Twitter campaign. Let's reach out and tweet them, right? We'll send a Twitter thing. Are you on Twitter? You're probably not on Twitter. You're probably
quick. I got to make a Twitter account. How do I got to make
I'll do it, right? So, but I say that's what it's going to be. It's going to have to be like a grassroots campaign where people realize the symbiotic nature that we share, not just with grizzly bears and salmon, but with this whole concept of pristine, this whole concept of, isn't there just a couple of square feet that human beings can leave their hands off of? I say we start a Twitter campaign. I don't know how you would, right? We'll just tweet them and go, you've been there. You know what this is all about. Okay, so who's Scott Pruitt's replacement? Who do they got in there now buying Tiffany doors for their office? What's his name? The guy with the cowboy hat?
No. Now we've got Andrew Wheeler.
What's Wheeler wear on his head?
Well, he wears a copper hat that he
tinfoil.
He did used to work for a company that was associated with the Pebble Project. So when we talk about corruption going all the way up, like we have a Pebble advocate in the head position at the EPA.
Get out of here! It's like I've seen a poltergeist. Oh, I won't have to watch Ancient Aliens tonight. I've already had my spiritual poltergeist experience. So that's why it's happening. So yeah, now I see why everyone's worried about it. Yeah, we're going to have to start a campaign. So tell me about, because I'll just go on forever with you about this. We'll do it offline. But so what are you doing, right? So you and I are friends. We're hanging out. We're going to do this. But talk to me about the video. Talk to me. I mean, how else can we get their attention to make sure this doesn't happen? Because it sounds to me like time's running out.
Yeah, we are coming to a head here. Like there is some stuff that would be happening in 2020 that nobody's being able to prepare for just because of everything that's been going on. But So this fight has been going on for decades and decades and decades,
Right.
and we thought we had it beat, and then it came back through the process the corrupt process we just talked about. And when that happened is when this imaginary plan that I just threw out there a few minutes ago came to, like, that's when they announced that plan.
When you say 2020, like we're a third of the way or a quarter of the way gone. So this is going down. You call it spring break where you are. This is going down while you're out cleaning up after the dog.
Yeah, they hope to have this whole thing rammed through by November, interestingly. And so what I've been doing is, well, this new plan came out, and this new plan, before, the mine was always just theoretical, and it was over in Bristol Bay. It was far. They didn't have anything about the road corridor. They didn't have anything about the rest of the 200-mile gash in the habitat. And so I made a film with some friends of mine where we really want to highlight just what is at stake, and not just at the ground zero. We're analyzing the other parts of it. I mean, there have been. I mean, the tribes in Bristol Bay have been pleading their case and talking about the native lifestyles, the fisheries for decades. And this new aspect of it is not designed to take away from their argument. It's designed to highlight everything else that is slated to be destroyed in this process. That if they slip this under during our watch, like, I don't know how I can deal with that. I mean, that is not something I can stand by and just let happen.
Stand by and let it happen. And that's why you did the video, I'm assuming. Not just, and if I could say, Drew, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so if I'm wrong, you can tell me, right? I would imagine that your fight is just not about where you are, but it's for what few wild, pristine places we still have left. Why don't you make the Everglades a parking lot? Why don't you go into Yellowstone and make it? Well, the volcano is going to take care of it. Who and I can. But why don't you just go into Yellowstone and make it an amusement park? Why don't you go into some of the other fragile ecosystems and make them a train station, an airport, or this or that? So you're fighting a battle at the micro level, but it really is a macro message. This kind of hocus pocus is going on, and we have to do collectively as a people, we have to do what we can to stand up to this.
Is nothing sacred? Is nothing sacred anymore?
Apparently not. Apparently, what the price of pristine is like $1.15, right? I'm guessing. I don't know. But for me or my kids, I'd like one day to come and see you. I'd like my kids to be able to come and see, other than a stuffed grizzly bear, a stuffed animal. I'd like my kids to be able to come and see that. So your message is one, not just for you all, but for everyone that could be in this kind of battle. So tell me some more about the video. Like, it's a video. How long is it? If I could, you should give me the name, right, brother? You should give me the name, how long it is, where do people watch, where do they get a hold of it, what can they do once they've got it? I'm going to ask everyone to share this.
Yes.
So we will get that around, but so let's talk nomenclature of the video itself.
So this film is called Pebble Redux, The Bears of Amactadori. And what we did is we flew out to this spot that is destined, if this thing is pushed through, to become the industrial port site. And it's this spot on the shores of Cook Inlet that, I mean, you've got volcanoes all around you, you've got bears, you've got a salmon stream right through the middle of it. And we just spent 5 days out there watching bears, watching wilderness, and recorded it and put it together in such a way that you can really get a feel for the place. Like, so you lay eyes on, like, right now, this is all just some theoretical. You have no idea what this place looks like. And it is stunning. Like, if this were not in Alaska, it'd be a national park.
Like I said before about the streetlights of a city, right? The light blindness of being able to see the Milky Way. My viewers, the people that will watch this, probably have no idea what you're talking about. So when you guys and girls, I'm imagining your team did this. I'll put it like this. I listened to an interview the other day with Tom Cruise. And I forget, Jerry, somebody or other, who produced this new Top Gun movie. And he said, our dream of producing this movie was to make the viewer feel like they were in the cockpit. We did everything we could so that the viewer actually thought they were in a dogfight. And he said, it was so detailed, it will probably never happen again. Did you do this? Did you all shoot this video in the same way so that the person watching it, even though it's not, I don't even know what panoramic would be in a video, but the people watching it would get a bird's eye view, right? Would get a real view of what you're talking about so that they could viscerally taste it, right? They'd have a feeling for it after watching your video.
You know, we didn't set out to do that, but
Okay.
I think that's what happened.
Groovy.
Like
As
when
it
you
should
watch
be.
this film, you feel like you're there. You're sitting there right there next to us watching these. There's this great scene in the film where this bear is playing with this log, and it really it does feel like you're sitting there on the bank of a river. We've got underwater shots. You're in there with the salmon. It's immersive, literally.
So other people will be able to distill from your video a sense of what you've known all these years about the pristine nature of both the flora and the fauna. Is that a fair assessment?
That is, and it really is a situation like we talked about. You guys can't come to Alaska right now,
right?
But it is a save it now, see it later kind of scenario.
Sure.
Like if you don't do something now, and it does, you might be somebody who's never written your senator before, but maybe this is the time to draw that line in the sand and say, I'm not going to put up with this BS anymore. Like, I want to go to Alaska someday. I want to have this experience for my children and my children's children.
Yep.
And so what we've done is we've tried to make it easy to write what could be your first letter to your senator. We've got a website, defendbristolbay.com/bears, and it's set up. You put in your zip code and whatnot, and it will send your letter directly to your legislators.
Done. So I go to this site. We'll put it up. I imagine it's going to be, in the notes. You go there. You put in your, you know what else? Can I make a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
I say we get Needle Knitz's address. The guy replace the one with the hat. What'd you say his name was? What's the guy over there now for the administration? The guy that used to work for Pebble Creek.
Andrew
Pebble
Wheeler
Mine,
over at the EPA.
Yeah, we should put his email address in there. We can't find this Jabroni's email address. We should put that in there, right? Just saying.
So get this. So
right
now, this permit, it's not actually in his hands yet. So this process is going on through the Army Corps of Engineers.
All right.
And the Army Corps of Engineers, of course, is a branch of the U.S. Army. Not a branch, but it's part of the U.S. Army, who, of course, is beholden to their commander-in-chief.
Well, look, some good news. That Navy captain, it looks like he's going to be reinstated.
Is he
the
really?
one that they fired? Yeah, because he was showing the whistle for coronavirus. So maybe there's a way where somebody in the Army will go, this is just plain nuts. All right, so you have the website that'll be, I imagine, towards the end of the video, right, brother? So everyone will see the video. They'll feel the same way that I did when I saw it. Feel the same way you did. Then there's going to be, I think you said, savebristolbay.com/bear.
Defendbristolbay.com.
Defendbristolbay.com/bears.
Yeah.
And then so they'll get there. They'll send a letter to their senator. And I would dare say, Drew, that not only is it that they're going to want to protect it for the future, I think people are tired of the bait and switch. I think so many people go, yeah, I get coronavirus. I get it. I get the lockdown. But what else is going on, right? While we're busy looking over here, what else is going on over here? And I'll bet you there are people that'll be fired up just because this is trying to be pulled off under the cover of darkness.
I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I am an independent voter. I am a small business owner. I am making my way in the world just like everybody else. And I just feel that this is stacking the deck against me. Like here we're all chasing the American dream. Well, if we're running into this wall and we've got these forces working against us from the top down, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And let me also say this would be a great time to put in the bottom anyone that Brian may have called a name. Well, the views expressed by Brian are absolutely his, not Drew's, right? So we'll put that right in there because I probably said Jabroni. I probably said Needle Knits. I probably said Chucklehead. Knowing me, right? Those are my big three. But, right, so we'll just make sure that gets in there. So it's not Drew, it's me. Send your email. I think I can hear the Black Hawk helicopter now, brother. All right, so we've got the video. Somebody get the shotgun, Ma. All right, so we've got the video. How long? Did you tell me and I just nodded off? I'm sorry. How long?
So it's 15 minutes. It's not long. It's just a small portion of your day, but we've got it wrapped up into. It's actually part of a webinar we did, and so we've got the YouTube link to this webinar, and it will be me talking about bears. It will be a salmon expert talking about salmon. We'll show the video, and then it's got the link that you can write your legislators. So it's informational, it's entertainment, and
inspiring.
It's got a call to action.
Yes. Inspiring. I would say, right, in terms of the footage that you were talking about. All right, brother, is there anything else I can do for you? I don't, there's just a few people follow me, right? So there won't be a lot, but you let me know. I'll sign up for that. And send in the mail and everything else. Who knows? I think our guys are quarantined. I don't even think our people, I don't even think they're here anymore. I think they're locked down and wherever they are, but we'll do that. Anything else you think of that I can do for you?
I just thank you for getting the word out on this subject. And it really is, it's something that should concern everybody. Like everybody. I know a lot of people might not be political. They might think, oh, this is just political BS, but this is about you and me. And this is drawing a line in the sand about standing up to the forces that are working against us.
And you know, can I tell you something that came through my mind through this whole thing? It's like these out of control homeowners associations, right? Which is why I say all the time, big government doesn't live in DC or state capitals. Big government lives in little minds. So for the people watching this that have just about had it with homeowners associations going, I'm the president, so you don't get to fly a flag. Can't put a sign in your front yard. Mailbox has got to be painted white, for God's sakes. So I think this is going to strike a nerve with people where they're like, oh, you give this guy a little bit of power. Now he's Thor. So this is good. And by Thor, I meant no political person you might know, hair color included. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it could be like Thor. So we'll do that. And then we'll go ahead and share it out. And I thank you so much for your time. You've reinvigorated my belief that human beings will say there's a price to place on the pristine, and it's incalculable, right? Even more so than our current debt with everything going on. It's incalculable, the price to put on the pristine. So, Drew, thank you so very much. Thank you for sharing it with us. And please, brother, let me know if there's something else I can do. By all means, give me a holler and let me know.
Amen on all that. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. All right, everybody. Thank you so very much. Look, all the good stuff that came out of this was Drew. All the stuff that you go, that's absolutely insane. Well, you've watched me for a while. You know that's me. So hold all the good stuff on Drew. Hold all the bad stuff on me. And then we'll look forward to seeing you back here the very next, what is it, like tomorrow already? The very next time. Thank you so very much for joining us. And as always, it really is, it's very humbling that you all have been with me for as long as you have through, like I said, like 5 brain surgeries. I've got friends who haven't stuck with me from 5 brain surgeries. So thank you all so very much. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll look forward to hanging out with you very, very soon. Again, if there's anything else I can do, hit me up at mortalup.com, and we'll be happy to help in any way that we can. Thank you all so very much. I look forward to seeing you soon.